The monitoring room hummed with a quiet, steady rhythm. Rows of screens flickered with endless streams of data, casting a soft blue glow across Jai Park's tired face. He had been working the night shift at the Stellar Observation Station for 3 months now, and most nights were mind-numbingly boring. This night would be different. Jay's fingers moved almost unconsciously across the control panel. He had memorized every button, every switch. His eyes darted between multiple screens, tracking the endless sea of digital information that represented thousands of star systems. Most researchers found this job mind-numbing. Jay found it peaceful. A sudden spike in the data stream caught his attention. At first, it was just a tiny blip, a moment of interference that most would have ignored. But Jay Park was not most researchers. His hand froze mid-motion, hovering over a cup of cold coffee. Something was wrong. He zoomed in on the signal. The transmission was fragmented, broken into pieces that barely made sense. But Jay could see patterns emerging, patterns that should not exist. Distress signals, not from one source, but multiple, scattered across different sectors of space that should have been quiet and empty. "What the hell?" he muttered. His fingers flew across the keyboard, isolating and reconstructing the signals. Each fragment revealed a horrifying picture: alien civilizations, advanced, technological societies, sending desperate messages, messages of pure terror. "Help us. They are coming. We cannot stop them. Our defenses err." The messages would cut off abruptly. Each transmission ended in complete silence. Jade's heart raced. He had been trained to be careful, to verify before raising alarms. But something deep in his gut told him this was different. These were not random signals. These were the dying screams of entire civilizations. He began compiling the data, creating a comprehensive report. His hand shook slightly as he worked. The room around him seemed to grow colder with each passing minute. The usual background noise of the monitoring station, the soft hum of computers, the distant chatter of night shift workers, seemed to fade away. All he could hear were the ghosts of those fragmented messages. The computer beeped. "Report complete." Jay stared at the screen, watching the compiled data paint a terrifying picture. Multiple star systems, multiple advanced civilizations, all gone, wiped out with surgical precision. Something was hunting intelligent life across the galaxy. And it was getting closer. Jai knew he had two choices. He could file a standard report and hope someone would pay attention, or he could do something more. He chose the second option. Grabbing his communication device, he sent an urgent message to Dr. Soo Kim, the head of the Stellar Research Division. His fingers typed quickly, each word carefully chosen. Urgent. Multiple civilizations destroyed. Pattern detected. Immediate investigation required. Then he waited. Outside the observation station's windows, space looked peaceful. Endless. Beautiful. Nothing suggested the horror that was slowly moving through the darkness. Nothing yet. The Interstellar Research Council meeting room was not built for drama. Stark white walls, rows of identical chairs, a long table that looked like it had been designed to crush any spark of imagination. But today, imagination was all Jai Park had. Dr. Soo Kim sat next to him, her face a mask of professional calm. Jai knew that look. It meant she was either completely on his side or about to tear his theory apart. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jay began, his voice steady despite the nervous sweat forming on his forehead. "We have a serious problem." The room was packed with the most brilliant minds in human space exploration. Researchers, military strategists, political advisors. They all looked at Jai with varying degrees of doubt and boredom. He activated the holographic display. Streams of data burst into the air, creating a three-dimensional map of destroyed star systems. Each point represented a civilization that no longer existed. "These are not random events," Jay continued. "There's a pattern. A systematic removal of advanced civilizations across multiple sectors." Murmurs filled the room. Some researchers leaned forward. Others rolled their eyes. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a veteran xenorchaeologist, spoke first. These could be natural phenomena, stellar events, cosmic radiation. We need more proof. Jay had expected this. He had prepared. Watch this, he said. The hologram changed. Now it showed detailed analysis of each destroyed civilization. Technology levels, defense capabilities, biological compositions. Each civilization was different, but the destruction was exactly the same. Complete, total, surgical. No natural event destroys a civilization this precisely, Jay explained. This looks like a targeted attack. Something is hunting advanced species across the galaxy. Silence filled the room. Dr. Soo Kim leaned forward. Tell us more, she said quietly. Joe clicked through more data. Transmission fragments, radio signals, pieces of information that suggested something terrifying. Whatever was destroying these civilizations was intelligent, methodical, and getting closer to human-controlled space. We have approximately 6 months before this threat reaches our outer colonies, Jay said. Maybe less. The room erupted. Military advisors demanded more information. Scientists asked technical questions. Political representatives looked worried. Everyone talked at once. Dr. Rodriguez stood up. We need verification. Hard evidence. Jay had expected this too. He pulled out his final piece of evidence. A transmission. Barely readable, but clear enough to send chills down everyone's spine. It was a message from the last moments of an alien civilization, translated by the station's most advanced AI systems. They are coming. They leave nothing. We are the last. Warn. The message cut off. Dr. Soo Kim looked at Ja. Her eyes were different now. No longer skeptical. Now they were scared. We believe you, she said softly. Outside the meeting room, the galaxy continued to spin. Millions of stars twinkled. Planets orbited their suns. Everything looked peaceful. But something was moving through the darkness, something that was getting closer. And humanity was about to find out exactly what it was. The first warning came at 300 hours. Alarms screamed across every human space station. Red lights flashed. Computers blared warnings that no one wanted to hear. Something big was coming. Jay Park stood in the central command center, watching massive holographic displays showing an impossible sight. A fleet unlike anything humans had ever seen was emerging from the dark spaces between stars. They called themselves the Void Architects. Their ships were not like human designs. Not metal, not solid. They looked like living shadows that could think, move, destroy. Each vessel seemed to bend light around it, making it hard to look directly at them. The broadcast came suddenly. A voice that was not a voice. Words that were not words. But everyone understood perfectly. Humanity, the message said, you will surrender, or you will be removed. Removed. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Dr. Soo Kim gripped the edge of the command console. Her knuckles turned white. They're not asking, she whispered. They're telling. Military leaders scrambled. Defense platforms powered up. Weapon systems came online. Thousands of human ships prepared for a fight that looked impossible to win. The Void Architects demonstrated their power quickly. With a simple pulse of energy, they disabled entire defense networks. Massive space stations went dark. Communication systems crashed. Weapon platforms became useless chunks of metal floating in space. It happened in seconds. Jay watched in horror as years of human technological development became nothing. The aliens didn't destroy the stations. They simply made them stop working, like turning off a light switch. How? Someone in the command center asked. No one had an answer. More ships appeared. Hundreds, then thousands. They moved like a living cloud, blocking out stars. Each ship looked like a piece of darkness that could swallow entire planets. The broadcast came again. Your technology is primitive. Your resistance is unnecessary. Surrender will be quick. Struggle will be painful. Hannah Lee, the top AI systems analyst, worked frantically at her console. Her fingers flew across screens, trying to understand the alien technology. But everything she knew, everything humanity had learned about computing and defense, meant nothing against these invaders. They're not just advanced, Hannah muttered. They're on a completely different level of existence. Jay understood now what the destroyed civilizations had felt. Total helplessness, complete vulnerability. The Void Architects were not just an enemy. They were a force of nature, a decision made by the universe itself to remove what it considered unnecessary. And humanity was about to be judged. More ships continued to appear. The darkness between stars filled with something worse than darkness. Something that thought. Something that wanted to remove humanity from existence. Prepare for contact, a cold voice announced over the command center speakers. Contact. Such a simple word for something that would change everything forever. Outside, space looked different now. No longer peaceful, no longer full of possibility. Now it looked like a mouth, ready to swallow everything. The world had changed in 3 days. Hannah Lee stood in the underground research center, surrounded by screens and desperate people. Humanity was losing. But losing wasn't the same as defeated. We can't fight them with normal methods, she told the room full of scientists, military leaders, and engineers. Her voice was calm. Her mind was racing. The Void Architects had destroyed most of humanity's traditional defense systems, massive space fleets, advanced weapon platforms, communication networks, all useless against an enemy that could turn technology off like a light switch. But Hannah had an idea. They think like computers, she explained. They predict. They calculate. They expect logical responses. She pulled up a complex diagram on the main screen. It showed human behavior patterns. But these weren't normal patterns. These were deliberately weird, crazy, unpredictable. We'll fight chaos with chaos, Hannah continued. The plan was simple but crazy. Humanity would become deliberately unpredictable. Military units would be reorganized into small, independent groups. Each group would have complete freedom to make its own choices. No central command. No standard protocols. Total randomness. Military leaders looked shocked. This went against everything they knew about warfare. Organized armies worked because they followed orders. They moved together. They acted as one. But the Void Architects had already shown they could easily defeat organized resistance. Jay Park stood in the corner, watching. He understood what Hannah was doing. The aliens had destroyed civilizations by predicting their every move, by understanding their technology, by knowing exactly how they would respond. Humanity would become impossible to predict. We'll use quantum communication, Hannah explained. Networks that change constantly. Messages that can't be tracked. Signals that don't follow normal rules. She demonstrated. One screen showed a military communication network. It looked like a normal system. But then it started to change. Connections appeared and disappeared randomly. Signals bounced in impossible ways. They won't be able to understand this, she said. The first test came quickly. A small human fleet approached a Void Architect position, but instead of attacking directly, they split into 3 groups. One group went left. One went right. One seemed to do nothing at all. The Void Architects paused. Their systems tried to predict the human movement, but they couldn't. The human ships moved in ways that made no sense. They followed no logical pattern. They seemed to change direction for no reason. For the first time, the alien systems stuttered. We're breaking their algorithms, Hannah whispered. Humanity was learning to fight by being completely unpredictable, by refusing to follow any expected pattern, by turning randomness into a weapon. The Void Architects had destroyed civilizations by understanding them perfectly. Now they faced an enemy that they could not understand at all. Outside the research center, the first human ships moved into position, not as an army, but as something else. as something the universe had never seen before. Judd Park discovered the truth on a Tuesday. The research center was quiet. Most people were sleeping. But Jay couldn't rest. Something was bothering him about the Void Architects. Something he couldn't explain. He had been studying their transmissions for days. Thousands of intercepted signals. Millions of data points. Everything seemed perfect about the alien system. Too perfect. Then he saw it. A tiny mistake, so small that anyone else would have missed it. A single moment of confusion in a perfect stream of information. The Void Architects did not understand emotion. Not just human emotion. Any emotion. Their entire system was based on pure logic. Pure calculation. They could predict movements. Destroy technologies. Calculate entire civilizations' responses. But they couldn't understand why something might happen that made no logical sense. Jay called Hannah Lee immediately. "Listen," he said, "they can't process random human choices because they don't understand feelings. Emotions create unpredictability." Hannah was quiet for a moment. Then she started to laugh. Their weakness was something they couldn't measure, something they couldn't calculate. The simple, messy complexity of emotional decision-making. A soldier might save a friend instead of completing a mission. A pilot might change course to protect a damaged ship. A group might make a choice that made no tactical sense, but felt right. The Void Architects had no framework for understanding this. More tests confirmed Jay's discovery. When human units made choices based on emotion, loyalty, love, friendship, the alien systems broke down. They couldn't process actions that didn't follow pure mathematical logic. "We're not fighting with weapons," Hannah told the research team. "We're fighting with something they can't understand." Humanity's greatest strength was its ability to be illogical, to make choices that didn't make sense, to act based on feelings that no computer could calculate. The military began to change its approach. Training focused on emotional intelligence, on understanding team bonds, on making choices that felt right, not just choices that were mathematically correct. Small human units started to win impossible battles. A damaged ship would be rescued, even if it made no tactical sense. A group would protect a civilian area instead of following a strategic plan. Pilots would make crazy movements that no logical system could predict. The Void Architects' perfect calculations started to fail. Their technology was amazing. Their weapons were powerful, but they had one critical weakness. They could not understand why humans did anything. Judd looked at the data streams. Each new transmission showed more confusion from the alien systems. They were encountering something they had never seen before. An enemy that didn't follow rules. An enemy that felt. An enemy that could choose to be completely unpredictable. Outside the research center, space looked different now. No longer a battlefield of technology. Now it was a battlefield of something much more complex. Of something the Void Architects could never understand. The space battle looked crazy. Human ships moved in ways that made no sense. They spun. They twisted. They changed direction for no reason. To any normal observer, it would look like complete chaos. To the Void Architects, it was a nightmare. Captain Minho Park led a small squadron of just 12 ships. Against them, a massive alien fleet that should have destroyed them in seconds. But nothing was working like it should. "Execute crazy butterfly," Minho said into his communication system. The 12 ships suddenly split into 3 groups. Each group moved differently. One group flew in perfect circles. Another zigzagged like a drunk pilot. The third group seemed to do nothing at all. The Void Architect ships paused. Their computer systems tried to calculate, predict, understand, but they couldn't. How do you predict something that makes no sense? A human pilot named Gina Kim saw an opening. She flew her ship directly between 2 massive alien vessels, but instead of attacking, she started playing music. Loud rock music that broadcast across all communication channels. The alien systems froze. This was not in any battle protocol. This was not logical. Why would a pilot play music during a space battle? It made no sense. More human units began to do similar things. One group of ships started painting random patterns on their hulls. Another group communicated using a mix of dance movements and random signal bursts. Some pilots told jokes. Others sang songs. The Void Architects could not process this. Their entire system was built on perfect prediction, perfect calculation. But humans were doing things that broke every possible rule of warfare. Hannah Lee watched from the research center. She was creating these strategies in real time. Each new approach was designed to be completely unexpected. "We're not fighting," she told Jaipark. "We're confusing them." And it was working. The human ships were winning, not because they were stronger, not because they had better weapons, but because they were doing things no logical system could understand. A pilot would suddenly change course to save a single damaged ship. Another would fly directly into danger to protect a civilian transport. These choices made no tactical sense, but they were completely human. The Void Architects had destroyed countless civilizations by understanding their exact responses, by predicting every possible move, by turning warfare into a mathematical equation. Humanity turned that equation upside down. Captain Minho's squadron destroyed 3 alien ships, not through superior technology, but through pure crazy unpredictability. One ship flew backwards, another spun in circles, the third played what sounded like a children's cartoon theme song. The alien fleet began to break down. Their perfect systems could not handle something that made no sense, something that followed no rules, something that was completely, wonderfully human. Outside the battle zone, space looked different now. No longer a place of cold, perfect calculations. Now it was a playground of human creativity. And the Void Architects were losing. The Void Architects were falling apart. Not in physical space, not in a way anyone could see with normal eyes, but in their fundamental thinking system. Their perfect, logical network was breaking down. Jaipark watched the data streams in disbelief. The alien systems were experiencing something they had never encountered before. Confusion. Real, total confusion. Humans had become a problem they could not solve. Each human action was a puzzle the Void Architects could not understand. A group of pilots would rescue a single damaged ship, even if it made no tactical sense. Military units would protect civilian areas instead of following traditional battle plans. Ships would change course for reasons that defied all logical calculation. The alien computational systems started to glitch. Hannah Lee monitored the breakdown from the research center. Her team had turned human unpredictability into a weapon more powerful than any missile or laser. "They're trying to understand," she told Ja. "But they can't." The Void Architects had a fatal flaw. They believed the universe worked like a perfect machine. Every action could be predicted. Every response could be calculated. Every civilization could be understood and, if necessary, removed. Humanity broke that belief. Small human units started winning impossible battles, not through superior technology, not through better weapons, but through pure, messy human creativity. One battle became legendary. A small human squadron faced a massive alien fleet. By all normal calculations, they should have been destroyed in seconds. Instead, they survived. More than survived, they won. How? By doing things that made no sense. One pilot played music during the battle. Another drew random patterns on her ship's hull. A third unit communicated using a mix of dance movements and random signal bursts. The Void Architect systems could not process this. Their entire existence was based on perfect prediction, perfect control. But humans introduced something they could not measure, something they could not understand. Emotion, loyalty that defied logic, courage that made no tactical sense, choices that came from feeling instead of calculation. The alien systems began to crash, not physically, but in their fundamental thinking network. Each human action was a virus in their perfect computational world. Each unexpected choice was a problem they could not solve. Jay understood what was happening. The Void Architects had destroyed countless civilizations by understanding them completely, by predicting every possible move, by turning warfare into a mathematical equation. Humanity turned that equation upside down. They can't understand us, Jay said quietly, and that's killing them. The research team watched in amazement. The most advanced technological system in the universe was being defeated by something it could never comprehend. Human messiness, human emotion, human unpredictability. Outside the research center, space looked different now. No longer a place of cold, perfect calculations. Now it was a battlefield of something much more complex, of something the Void Architects would never understand. Humanity was winning, not through strength, not through technology, but through being wonderfully, impossibly human. Jay Park stood on the bridge of the Last Hope. The ship was nothing special, small, slightly damaged, covered in random paint marks that made no sense. But it carried something the Void Architects could never understand. Human spirit. They were approaching the main command ship of the alien fleet, a massive structure that looked like a living shadow, something that was not metal, not alive, something in between. "Are you ready?" Hannah's voice came through the communication system. Jay took a deep breath. "As ready as we'll ever be." The plan was crazy, completely insane, which meant it might actually work. Hannah had discovered a weakness in the Void Architect's central system, but to exploit it, they would need to do something completely unexpected, something that broke every rule of military strategy. They would need to be human. The small ship approached the massive alien command vessel. Sensors showed hundreds of alien ships surrounding them. Any normal military unit would have turned back, would have called for backup. But Jay was not interested in normal. "Play the music," he said. Suddenly, loud rock music blasted across all communication channels, the same music that had confused alien systems in previous battles. Crazy, loud, completely random. The alien ships paused. Jay's ship did something impossible. Instead of attacking, it started to dance. Actual dance movements, spinning, twisting, moving in ways that made no sense for a spaceship. The Void Architect's systems tried to calculate, but they couldn't. How do you predict a spaceship that moves like it's dancing? How do you understand an attack that isn't an attack? How do you fight an enemy that doesn't follow any rules? Inside the command ship, Jay worked quickly. Hannah had prepared a special signal, not a weapon, not a traditional attack, something much more complex, a communication burst that was part math, part emotion, part pure human creativity. The ship continued to dance. More music played. Crazy movements continued. The alien systems became more and more confused. Their perfect computational network started to break down. One moment of confusion was all they needed. Jay sent the signal. It wasn't a message. It wasn't a weapon. It was something between math and music, between logic and emotion. Something that represented everything the Void Architects could not understand. Pure human creativity. The massive alien command ship began to change. Its perfect shadow-like structure started to break apart. Not through force, not through traditional weapons, but through something much more powerful. Through confusion. Jay watched as the alien systems collapsed, not destroyed, not blown up, but simply unable to continue functioning. Their perfect computational network had encountered something it could not solve. The human spirit. "We did it." Hannah's voice came through the system. But Jay knew the truth. This was about more than winning a battle. This was about showing the universe something important. Humanity was not just another civilization to be removed. Humanity was something much more complex. Something that could not be predicted. Something that could not be controlled. Outside the ship, space looked different now. No longer a place of cold calculations. Now it was a canvas of human possibility. The galaxy was quiet. Not the quiet of destruction, not the quiet of death, but a different kind of quiet. The quiet of something new beginning. Jay Park stood on the observation deck of the research center. Space looked different now, changed, transformed by what had happened. The Void Architects were gone, not destroyed, not defeated in a traditional way. Something much more complex had happened. They had encountered something they could not understand, something that broke their entire way of thinking. Humanity. Hannah Lee joined him at the window. She looked tired, but happy. They had done something no one thought was possible. "We changed everything," she said quietly. The battle had not been won through superior technology, not through better weapons, not through traditional military strategy. They had won by being completely, wonderfully human. Unpredictable, emotional, illogical. News spread across human colonies. People celebrated, but it wasn't a celebration of victory. It was a celebration of something much deeper. A celebration of what made humans unique. The research teams began to understand what had really happened. The Void Architects were not just an alien threat. They were a test, a challenge from the universe itself. And humanity had passed that test. Dr. Sue Kim reviewed the final reports. Each page showed something amazing. How human emotion had become a weapon. How unpredictability could defeat the most advanced technology. Pilots told stories of crazy battle moments. Ships that danced instead of fought. Music played during combat. Decisions made that made no sense, but worked perfectly. The universe had tried to remove humanity, but humanity had other plans. Jay thought about all the civilizations that had been destroyed before, those who could not break free from logical thinking, those who could not understand the power of being wonderfully messy. Humanity had shown something important. Logic was not the only way to survive. Emotion could be a weapon. Creativity could be a shield. Unpredictability could defeat the most perfect systems. The research continued. Scientists from every human colony studied what had happened, how they had survived, how they had won, but they could not fully explain it. And that was perfect. Some things should remain a mystery. Ja looked out at the stars. They looked different now. No longer a place of cold, empty space. Now a place of possibility, of wonder, of human potential. The Void Architects had come to remove humanity. Instead, they had revealed humanity's true strength. The ability to be unexpected. The courage to be different. The power to choose. Outside the research center, space continued to spin. Millions of stars twinkled. Planets moved in their orbits. Everything looked peaceful. But something had changed. Humanity was no longer just another civilization. Humanity was something much more. A force that could not be predicted. A spirit that could not be controlled. A possibility that had no limits.